So the purpose of hitches is to tie ropes to objects. So for Clove Hitch, the first one we're going to do is we're going to go around and then we're going to come back over across so that we've got a clear cross in the middle there, and then back under, and then we're going to come up and underneath the cross. Right? So when all that pulls nice and neat, you've got this distinct H shape in the middle. And when that all pulls tight, we can see that it is attached, and might wrap around it a bit. This bamboo is quite slippy, but it's still not going to undo that knot. And that's Clove Hitch. Now, Constrictor knot is just a reinforcement of a Clove Hitch. So we've tied our Clove Hitch there in exactly the same way, and now what we're going to do, just to add a bit more strength and a bit more grip, because a lot of the strength in knots comes from the friction of the rope against itself. So we're just going to take our running end and I'm going to pass that over and under the standing end, and then when that pulls tight, it looks exactly like a Clove Hitch, except you've got that additional wrap that makes it stronger, but I'll warn you, a bit harder to undo. Now, a bow knot is, again, it's an adaptation, a stronger adaptation of the Clove Hitch, and effectively it's a double Clove Hitch. So what we're going to do is we are going to tie a Clove Hitch in the same way as we did before. Come under the rope again. That's our basic Clove Hitch. But then, give yourself a bit more rope to do this with. What we're going to do is to follow all the winds again. So we're going to come over there, around, over the top there, around, and then back under. So you can see that all we've actually done is tied two Clove Hitches on top of each other, and you can finish it off by the same way as we finished the Constrictor knot, by just popping an extra twist on that last bit. Pull that nice and tight, and we have Bowyer, effectively a double Clove Hitch. Again, this is another classic scout knot, round turn and two half hitches, and it is exactly as it's described. So we go a round turn, not half turn, a round turn, and then a hitch is we're just going to come around and then back in on itself. So that's one half hitch. Now, as you can see, that's a bit loose in and of itself, it's just all going to fall through. So in order to do something like that, we're going to add another half hitch to lock this half hitch. So I'm just going to go round and through again, exactly the same way as we did for the other one, and then pull all that tight, and now it's pretty solid. That's all it is. Going round, put a half hitch in, and then put another half hitch in there to lock the first one, and we end up with a nice tight knot for tying a line to a pole. So the purpose of this next hitch is Lark's head hitch, and we'll see it in use a bit later on, is to tie a loop, or two strands or whatever, around a pole. So we've got a loop, just tied a rig knot in the end to make a loop, and it's really dead easy. We pass our loop over the top of our pole, and then we pass the strands that we want to tie to it through the loop. So we end up with that. And we pull, and we have one Lark's head. Very useful for for temporarily tying lanterns up to tents. When you got the family tent and you need a lant. There you go. Lark's head. So, bit of an adaptation, a bit stronger, reinforced version of the Lark's head is the Prusik Knot. So for this we do exactly the same as we did with the Lark's head. Start with a loop, pass our thread through the loop. But we're going to keep those threads a bit far apart because we're going to go around again, and we're going to pass our threads through our loop. And we can do that again as well. Around the top, and then everything comes back through the bottom there. And we can tie that off, or pull it tight rather. Tie it off. It doesn't need to be tied off. Put it all tight, and then we have a Prusik knot. It's essentially a reinforced version of the Lark's head. So another adaptation on the concept of the Lark's head is the cat's paw. So for this, we start with a couple of standing loops. Then I'm going to twist this one this way once, twice. And it's a good thing just to hold on to that one there. And then I'm going to twist this way in the other direction once, twice. And then my pole is going to pass through the centre of those, pull everything tight, and what we end up with is what looks like a lark's head with the loop coming down the bottom, but you've got these two little paws there holding onto the rope. So it's just like a lark's head, where you've got the loops going through, but you've added some twists that just cling to the rope a little bit nicer. So it's just start off with your two loops, a couple of twists in either loop, then you pull through, cat's paw. So a timber hitch is for tying a piece of rope to a piece of whatever, timber usually, including the name. But the difference between this knot and some of the hitches is some of the hitches are strong in that direction. The whole point of a timber hitch is to be strong in that direction, so that it can be used for towing lumps of wood and whatever. So this is a really easy knot. There's not really much structural integrity into it, so just be careful with it for using it anything other than dragging it over, although we'll show you the diagonal lashing soon where it becomes a bit important. So the idea of the timber hitch is we come round, and then we come round itself, and then we just poke it, wrap it round a few times. Okay, so I've done one wrap there. You can do as many wraps as you like. Now this again with bamboo, there's not really much surface for it to grip on, but if you imagine bark and everything else going through, so it's strong in that direction, but there's not really much in that direction. So if you use a timber hitch, you actually want to sort of transport something, or you want to drag it on the ground or whatever, then it's good, because you don't actually want to then spend 6 hours having to untie your hitch afterwards. So I'm just going to show you that again just to be clear. So we've got a loop that's coming round, then we just loop around our original bit of rope, and then we're just going to twist it round itself a couple of times, loop once, that gives us our tight knot, and then do that again, and again do it as many times as you feel necessary, bearing in mind that every twist and turn and loop and everything else actually weakens your rope. So there you go. So that is timber hitch. Now okay, so the idea of a timber hitch is that you're making a hitch that is strong in a particular direction. So we're just, I can tie it without the pole there. I'm just going through and round and then adding twists just to make that loop. And what that effectively does, it gives us, so normally we'd have the log or the whatever going through there, but it gives us an adjustable loop that's strong once it's finished. But we can still sort of poke it through, add some more twists in, pull the rope around, whatever, add more or less on this end, and so on. And one place that this is very useful in is traditional archery. How, you might say, but here is my longbow. Here's my longbow, and here, if you can see, you have the loop there with the twists going around it on the end of the bowstring. And that is, for all intents and purposes, a timber hitch. In this case, it's an archer's knot or a bowyer's knot. And the reason why you want an adjustable knot on the end of a bowstring like that is because when you are playing around with bows, you need to know, or you need to make sure that the distance between your string and your stave, it's also known as the tiller, is correct for you. And in order for that to happen, you need to be able to adjust your string. There's a number of different ways you can adjust the string. You can add more twists to it, or you can do all sorts of things. But one of the obvious ways is actually to use more or less bowstring. So if the tiller, that distance, was too big, then I could adjust by moving this rope through the twists. I could give it more string that would put less arch in the bow, and also move the stave closer to the bowstring. And if I wanted it to be bigger, the tiller needed to be bigger because it was too small, then I could actually move the string through the timber hitch or the bowyer's knot, and add more arc, more tension to the string, and therefore move the string further away from this bow stave. So we've got the actual knock on the end of the bow that stops the whole thing. So even though a timber hitch is strong in this direction, so it would clamp itself around the stave anyway, just the addition of that knock there, that notch there, means that there's no way it's going to slide down once it's all under tension, and it's still there to be able to mess around to adjust the tiller of a bow. Okay, so this is a mooring hitch. The idea, the purpose behind this is you have the boat attached to this end of the rope somewhere over there, and you want to tie it to a mooring post, which is our bit of cane here. So we'll come over the top of the mooring post, and then we're going to tie the cross loop. Well, we're not going to tie the cross loop, we're just going to place the cross loop on top of our mooring line. And then we're going to bring our mooring line through our cross loop. And then we're going to put a bite in our running end, and that's going to go through that bit there. So what we've got is our line goes over the top of the mooring post, then we've got a cross loop on top, the mooring side, standing at the side of the mooring line, then comes through that cross loop, and then we put a bite in our running end that goes underneath the mooring end line side of things. And we're just going to tighten all of that up. still see what we've got there, roughly. So this is quite common with knots. So after you've tied it, it might look a bit messy and need a bit of tidying up. That's okay. That's called dressing the knot. So it's just making it look all neat and tidy. Okay, so there we go. There's our cross loop. There's our bite, and that is our mooring line going through. So on the mooring side of it, nice and tight, our boat isn't going to float away. And then our running end here, because it's got that bite passing through, if I just pull this, pull our boat through, if I just pull that, the whole thing just comes away, and off we sail again. Okay, so this is called a cow hitch, but you'll see that it looks very similar, and in fact is the same knot. It's a lark's head, and whereas a lark's head we were using it to tie a loop to a post, and the method that you do to do that, this is if we've got a running end, this is attached to the cow again. I'm not going to put it on the floor, otherwise it'll be attached to the cat. But so the idea is we're tying a cow hitch, effectively a lark's head, using a running end rather than a loop. So we start with by coming up and over our hitching post and underneath there, and then from there we come over the top of our hitching posts, back around the back of it, and then down there. So once all that's pulled tight, you can see that it's exactly the same as the lark's head, except we've got a running end and we've got a end that's attached to some form of animal, depending on whether your cat wants to play with your bits of string or not. And that is the cow hitch. Okay, so this is a halter hitch. The whole idea of that is to tie up livestock and so on. It's a bit of a quick release in terms, not quite as quick as a Hangman's hitch, but and it's a bit of a slip knot, but you'll see what goes. So we come over the top of our hitching post, then we come over the top. We've got our donkey attached to this bit, by the way, and then we come back underneath both parts of it, so that leaves us with a just going to get a bit more rope there. Okay, so that leaves us with a loop there. I'm going to put a bite in this bit. I'm going to pass the bite through there. Hopefully, well, the cat's being kind and he's helping me tighten the rope up there. But go on, let go, and clip. Not for tying cats up. Anyway, so after we've got that, so we've gone up and over the top, cross loop round the back, and then a bite through that cross loop, and that leaves us with one end, our running end there, that we're going to pass over the top of our cross loop and back through the bite that we just formed. So back down through there, right? So all of this bit is going to lock itself up when we pull everything tight, but this end, as you can see, isn't going anywhere. Now the reason why I say that this is a slip knot is because all of this is quite easily slipped out. So what you don't do is tie this bit around the donkey rather than the post, because you'll end up with one less donkey. But it is a relatively easy knot to undo after the fact, which is why it's good. It's secure, unless the donkey can fit through the loop it makes, then it's not going anywhere. And no matter how tight it's actually pulled, because of all the bites you've put in, loops you've put in there, it never actually tightens up to the point where it's impossible to undo. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is a highwayman's hitch. And you're a highwayman and you've got a horse and you're a bit on the wrong side of the law. So what you want to do is to tie a hitch that, to start with, stops your horse from running away, but to second with, that you can quickly undo, so you can leap on your horse and escape from the powers of the law. Also used in other non-criminal activities. So this is our hitching post, and this is our rope. Horse is on this side of it. So I'm just going to create a bite just underneath there. Then I'm going to create another bite in our horse end of the rope, and that bite I'm just going to pass through there. Tighten that up with our running end. So now we've got a bite and another bite. Okay, so I've got our first bite there, going around here, and then I've created a second bite in our horse end of things that I've just passed through that bite and tightened it up. And third bite, I'm going to create in our running end. This is our horse end, this is our running end. I'm going to create a third bite. I'm going to pass that through that bite. And then I'm going to pull that bite tight as well. So that's the whole thing. Bite on bite on bite on bite on 3 bites in total that just pass through each other. And again, we have that horse isn't going to be able to run away. That's still nice and tight. But this is our quick escape. You know, oh no, it's the law. Grab hold of this one, jump on your horse, pull, and we're gone. Shanks are knots that are designed to shorten pieces of rope. So you tie them in the rope in order to shorten it out. And we'll come to that mark in the middle of the rope there in a second, but first off I'm going to tie a sheep shank. Now to do a sheep shank we're going to make 3 crossing loops in the rope in a row. The middle one is going to be a little bit bigger. So crossing loop, crossing loop, crossing loop, right? Now the one to the left, this one, goes on top of there, and the one to the right goes behind, and then we pull the edges of the loop in the middle through the standing loops, and then we have to do a sort of funny, you know, tighten up the loops to either side, and then we have our sheep shank, and it's shortened it effectively by the size, the amount of rope in the centre loop. There's a little bit of a shortening in there concerned with the crossing loops on either side, but in general it's by the size of the centre loop that determines how much we've shortened it by. And this rope's fine if it's kept under tension. The knot is an unstable knot, so it's okay when it's under tension. It's not okay when it's under too much tension, because it will fall apart. These loops will actually fall through. And it's absolutely useless if it's not under tension at all. The knot will just fall apart. Those loops will actually go through. Now, one of the uses that you can put a sheep shank to is to bypass a bit of damaged rope, and that's why we've got that mark there, just to show you this. So if I'm going to make a loop in the middle, which is going to be our centre loop, with that mark at the top of the centre loop. Okay, so this is our damaged piece of rope, and this is the bit that we want to bypass. So I'm going to make another loop there, and that's our left-hand loop, and that's going to go underneath and go through there. And then I'm going to make another loop, and this is our right-hand loop, and that's going to go through there. So exactly the same way as we showed you how to tie it before. Tighten those edge loops up, and what I want to show you here is that centre bit there has actually got no tension on it whatsoever. I can loosen it off as much as I like. As soon as it's under tension, all the tension is in these bottom bits here. So our damaged bit of rope, no tension on it whatsoever. It's completely bypassed. But like I said, this is absolutely useless. Do not climb on this rope. It's useful for shortening the rope where that rope's under tension. Don't use it for structurally or anything like that. It's as soon as any of the tension goes off it, it's unstable and it will fall apart. And that's a sheep shank. Okay, so a bowline. The whole point of a bowline is to tie a standing, non-slipping loop at the bottom of the rope. Now, this is used quite often as a rescue knot, so you can actually tie, get a big enough rope or whatever, tie it around someone's upper body, chest, under armpits, to be able to lift them to safety or what have you. I'm going to show you two slightly different ways of tying it, but they're both essentially the same. If you really get into this kind of thing, one of the things, challenge to practice, is to learn how to tie it with one hand. You do need this end tight to be able to do that. So if you tie that round a pole using one of the hitches you would have learned, or anything like that, get a friend to hold it or so on. But if this is tight, then you can sort of do this kind of affair to get your loop and run your line in. But there's a little bit of a challenge, a one-handed bowline. But we're going to do it two hands for the example today. First thing you need, so this is the loose end at the bottom of the cliff. That one is all the way up the other end of the cliff. We don't need to go anywhere near that running at that end of it. So this is our running end. First thing we need to do is to create a loop. Now it's important the way around this loop goes, because part of the strength of the knot comes from it. So you can see that this is our running end here, and our running end comes over the top of the standing end, and then the standing end's underneath. Okay, so it's a crossing loop, but the running end comes over the top, and the reason for that is, effectively, we are tying that and then just strengthening out this side of it. And if the crossing loop is the other way around, then there is no strength there at all. So our standing end is just going to fall apart. So first important part is that the running end side of it is not like that, like that. So this standing end is held down. Right, so one of the ways of remembering this knot is using a rabbit running around holes and things, which is a good way to remember it. If you think of this as the tree, and again the tree roots going under the ground, starts you off with that loop fine. If you get that crossing bit wrong, then the rest of the knot will just fall apart. So using the analogy of the rabbit, our running end is our rabbit, and he comes out of his rabbit hole, then he goes around the back of the tree, and then he pops back down the rabbit hole like that. Okay, so it just forms a bite around our standing end just to lock that loop in place. All tightens up. It's got a very distinctive look to it. If you can see that, you can see the loop and the bite. Loop around the bottom, the bite over the top. And that is a non-slip loop. So this, what I mean by that is that this knot will not slip up and down that rope, and so that loop will just stay like that, and you're not going to lift someone out of the sea and have this come down and break their ribs or anything daft like that. Now, one of the things you'll see is that this end is actually inside the loop where we want our rescue person. There is a different way of tying it, slightly different. Still start with our loop like this, but in this case the rabbit, when he comes out of his hole, instead of running around the back of the tree, he goes running around the front of the tree. So we've got the rabbit coming out the hole, runs around the front of the tree, and then goes behind, and then comes back down his hole. Now remember, it's a bite that we're looking at here. not a loop, so these bits of rope never cross. So when we tighten that up, it's exactly the same shape of knot. You can see the cross loop, you can see the bite, but this time the running end is outside. And the only difference there is if you've actually got someone in a bit of a tight situation, the only thing they've got wrapped around them is the loop, and the running end is completely out of the way. Now the other thing you can do with this side, this kind of thing, is, I'm just going to go back one step so you know that we've gone out of the hole, we've gone around the front of the tree and then around the back, and now I'm going to pop another bite here and put the bite into the hole, right? So we'll tighten everything else up from that. Right, so instead of having the running end going in, I've put a bite in it. Alright, so there's the bite that I've put in. There's our cross loop. There's the bite from actually running around the tree, our rabbit coming around the tree. And what this is called, and it's strong loop, again, it's not going to slip and everything else, but this is a slipped bowline. And what we've added in is a quick release mechanism for it in the side here with that slip. So if you've got lots of people to rescue and you want to waste as little time as possible in getting the loop off one, untying one person and getting the rope down to the second, you can slip it like that. So one person gets rescued at the top, pull on that, knot comes loose completely, you can then send the rope down for the next person to come through. So it's just adding a little bit in there to make the knot quick release. Just as strong as long as the person you're rescuing doesn't decide to go and pull on that end of the rope when they're halfway up the cliff or the helicopter or whatever, because they'll be a fast way back down to the bottom. So there you go. Okay, Turk's head is a decorative knot, or it's often seen as a decorative knot, but it's a bit more useful for that. Now I'm going to tie it with brown leather cord here, which is going to be really helpful against the brown of the table, but you'll see why in the end. But beyond being a decorative knot, it's really useful for making handles out of, for protective things, and just adding some bulk to things. So there you go, that's a Turk's head I've tied around the handle of my Swedish fid, just to give me a bit of extra diameter and grip on it for when I'm using it to drive through rope. So it's, you know, it's really quite a handy knot. It's a good finishing knot as well. You can tie a Turk's head and then wrap, and then tie another Turk's head to finish it off around like an axe handle or something like that. Anyway, so a couple of fingers. I like to do it this way, so I can just bend that finger in there to keep things stable. That two fingers there could be the pole for an axe or anything like that, really. But it's just what you want. So what we do is we come over and round the back here. So we've just done that around the back. Then I'm going to come back up here and cross over like that. Then I come back round again. See, those two are parallel, and then cross over there. So that's the start, right? Next thing I'm going to do is to take my running end here, loosen that off a little bit, and poke that underneath there, and pull that all the way through. All right. So that's our basic start. If you get that bit right, and the next couple of steps, then the rest is dead easy. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my fingers towards me, right? If you can turn your fingers away from you, then you're bendier than I am, but besides that. So we're going to come this way, right? And then what I'm going to do is to get this bit and that bit, and I'm going to make a little bit of a cross with them there, just cross them over, all right? A couple of things that you need to remember here. First off, you need to make sure that that side is going underneath that side. And the second, you need to make sure that you maintain this little gap at the top here as well. this bit down the bottom will sort itself out because you've already got a bit of cord in there. Right, so just make a bit of a hole there. Use my ring finger there just to hold everything in place there, so I don't have to mess around too much. Right, and to lock all this in place, the Turk's head is a weave. We've come under, we've gone over. Now we need to go under. So we're going to come under here and then over the next one. Pull that all the way through, right? And then we're going to go under this one. Gone over there, so we're going to come under this one. And now we're going to turn our fingers back the other way. Ta-da! Okay, so now the hard bit's done. All the rest is just dead easy. Okay, so what I'm going to do, effectively I'm going to go over that bit, but the easy way to remember it is this is our standing end. It's the end where we're not actually doing anything with. All I need to do is just follow this round. Just follow it round every turn. So I'm going to come up through the middle there and just keep my cord absolutely alongside. Cross there. And you can see I'm going to come over there. Now I'm going to go under there. And it's gone over there. Going to come through there and pop up through there, so over and under, just following around exactly that bit of line all the way through. So it's come over there, camera operator trying to keep up with me moving my hands all over the place, but there you go. So I'm going to come over there, up there, over there, under there, up there, over there. Now once you get to this point, there's enough stability in the knot to be able to just move it off your fingers, and then it actually becomes a lot easier to deal with because you're not having to do this all the time. So I'm just going to follow this line all the way over. It goes under there and up there. Bum, bum, bum. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, oh, there we go. It goes over there. It goes under there. It comes up there. Now I would say, because there's a lot of like twists and turns in all of this, you will find, especially if you're trying to do this with paracord, that the rope will become twisted up like this as you're going through. So just, you know, at every turn you do, just take a little bit of time just to take the twists out as you are passing it through. You will see leather's a little bit easier to do this with because it's quite stiff. It'll naturally try to untwist itself, but you'll see what I mean when you press it through. It will coil itself up. So going over here and then under there, so it's through that bit. There you see it's all trying to twist itself up, so just a little bit of twisting and turning on that just to take the twist out. Go over here, under there, and over there. It's just weaving, just going in and out, and in and out, and in, and out, up there again. Now you can see we're exactly back where we started again. So there's my running end, my standing end, and there's where I went after I turned my hand back over again. So same again. I'm just going to do this a little bit quicker now because I'm sure you don't want to see the same thing over and over and over again. We've kind of showed you the point of what we're doing, and what we're doing here again is exactly the same. Now, depending on what you want to do with the Turk's head, you can go around like this as many times as you like. The only difference is, if you're going to do lots and lots and lots and lots of turns, is that you need to give yourself space. So when you're doing your coils, just space them out a bit, and sometimes instead of right next to each other, that's what I mean. Sometimes what you can do is, if you've kept it loose enough as you're tying it round, if you want like to do a whole axe handle with lots and lots of turns around it, is just tie a few and then spread out the loops, and then tie a few more, and then tie a few more, and that way you can get the length, the distance, space for as many turns as you want to do. So I'm just going to keep going around until I get back to the start. Another thing you can do, if you're so into it and feeling in a decorative mood, is to actually use two bits of different coloured thread. So you start off your first weave, so your first cycle, in one colour, and then do your second in the second colour, and then third in your original colour, and so on. You'll end up with lots of ends of bits all over the place, but what you'll end up with is stripy turns all the way around, one on one colour, one on another. Here we go. So we're back to the beginning here. So there's our 3 here, we've got 3 coming around here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just poke that through there into the middle, pull all that out, and then I've got 3 all the way around. Now, see inside we've got all of this affair going on. We've got our loose ends and things. Hopefully you can see that. Right, so there's different ways of finishing off. But before you finish it off, by the way, just go round, like we were saying about making knots stuck neat and all of that kind of thing. Go around and tighten your loops up. Sometimes these might be quite loose, so if you just take, you can take a fid and just tighten your coils up, you know, so we can pull that bit there, and then if you work around in the direction that you tied the knot, so start from the beginning, then you're pulling any slack out of anything all the way through, right? So depends how tight you tightened it, but whether you need a fid or not, but you know, it's there if you need it. So just follow it all the way round, take all that slack out. And you can do this to adjust the size as well. So if you want something that's a little bit smaller, you know, you can make it big and then we make it bigger, and then just pull more slack out. The more slack you create, then the smaller the final thing will be. When you are going around the knot like this, then just make sure that what you're doing is still keeping these lines in, because it's really kind of quite easy once you're tightening the knot up to lose them, to actually end up overlapping and everything else, and making a lot just not very coherent. Okay, nearly there. The last few turns. You can see how much slack I've pulled out of the whole thing, just to come down to I don't know. Anyway, so once you down the bottom, there we go, just pulls in. Alright, so we've just made it a little bit smaller. Anyway, so there's different ways that you can finish this off. You can use a glue, contact glue or a leather glue or whatever, to actually glue these ends together, so that you've got, you know, all the messy glue bits or whatever are inside. You can, if you're tying this against something, then it'll obviously you just pull it tight anyway, and it will tighten up around whatever you're tightening, and you don't really need to finish it. You might want to finish off that a little bit better. The traditional way of doing it, especially if you're making a woggle type thing, is to actually get a needle and thread and sew your strands, your inside strands, your starting one, your finishing one, and those two that are inside you can't actually see from the outside, sew them all together, just a bit of a loop going around, and that'll finish it off and stop them all slipping and the knot undoing. So yeah, that is, as the name suggests, it's called a Turk's head. It's a bit like a turban. Okay, so what we're going to be tying now, a bit of a controversial knot, but what we don't do is to use it for one of its traditional purposes. What we are using it for is as a slip knot that gives you some level of strength in various applications, from towing to all sorts of other ones, and this is commonly known as a noose. Alright, so you start off with an S shape. Now this is going to be the loop part of our noose. We run that up there and we start wrapping I'm not going to do like 13 in there. Go on, cat. I'm not going to do 13 loops because, you know, that was traditional. And all you do is you wrap that bit of rope however many times you want. Traditionally, 4 nooses, 13, yes, whatever. 3 will do for this purposes. I'm going to pull that in a little bit. So what we've got is now a little loop at the top there. That's our big noose loop. That's just come down and wrapped around the bite between the S shapes we've got, and that's just going to be poked through there. Alright, so I'm going to pull that one tight, that loop tight on that, and that's what we end up with. It's a slipped loop. So yeah, bit of a macabre history to this one, but you know, they had 13, but for most purposes, practical uses or whatever, it's 2 or 3 will do, however many you want. The reason why they had 13, if you want to go a bit deeper into the macabre side of it, is 13 loops. I've done 3 there, so 13 would bring you up to about here. 13 loops gave you quite a weight on the back there, so when they were actually using it for that old purpose, as the noose tightened up when they fell, they had a huge weight of knot coming in to smack them on the back of the neck, which was kinda, I suppose, in a way, than just letting them hang there and strangle themselves. But yeah, 13 because it's one of those numbers, but also it gave it quite a bit of chunky weight as more of a mercy beside to it. But yeah, now don't go tying those to hang your brothers and sisters up with. Like I said, it's quite a handy knot to know for tow lines and so on. So yeah, despite its history. Okay, so the next knot I'm going to do is a monkey's fist. Now it can all sorts of uses. It can be used as a weight knot, as a stopper, end, weight, to add weight to the length of a throwing rope or something like that. Even in what I've used there is a bit of a slider for effectively a lanyard or something that's on my sailor's knife. Back in my travels, we've even seen quite often, especially in seaside marine tourist traps, where you get a nice doorstep made of a big chunky piece of sailing rope. But it's a decorative knot that's also got some uses to it. But yeah, monkey's fist. You can tie these on jigs. You can buy monkey's fist jigs. Have a wander around eBay if you really want to, but I'm just going to show you how to tie them on your fingers. Okay, so at the start we're going to have a couple of fingers. If you've got enough rope, then use 3, but just use your fingertips to go through, because you need to get through these gaps in your fingers as well. So first off, really easy. I'm going to go around and around and around until I've got 3 threads on, so it's even on all sides, right? Next off, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to attach one of these little screw fits to the end, because then it really does, when you're doing it with paracord, it makes this a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to go, I've got 3 on each side. I'm going to go around here, so curling around there and then coming back up through the middle here. Right. So I'm going to go around the back there and then up through here. Right. And again, annoy my camera operator as she desperately tries to keep up with me moving my hands all over the place. Right, so that's twice, and then the 3rd time. Alright, now what I'm going to do, just for the sake of showing through this, you can get a bit of marble or stone or whatever you want really. You don't have to, you can tie a monkey's fist around itself, it doesn't have to be a cord to it, but for this I'm just going to pop that in there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go, so I've gone around all my bits and pieces this time, so now I want to go down into it, so I'm going to go down, you can see that, and then up along my finger. So I've got to make sure that I'm going underneath all of these various wraps and things, and I'm coming out there, right? So I've got my coming down bits going on there, right? Then up again. You can see why I put the stone in at this point, because if you put it in at a later point, then you've got a cat and nails chance of getting it in. So back down again and over, back at the top, and over, gives me 1, 2, and then gives me my 3rd one, right? So, right, and then that is essentially, you can come off my fingers, and that's essentially it. That's monkey's fist. Might look a bit rubbish at the moment, but that's because, like I was saying before, once you've tied knots, sometimes they look a bit messy and you need to tighten them up, and you need to make them look prettier and whatever you need to do, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. So this is just following the line of the knot round, and just tightening it all up. So we've got from there, that's fairly tight all the way around there, that's tight all the way around there. It's pretty much these bits of coil that we need to tighten up here to bring this round. So let's pull that one tight there, and then that one will pull tight through there, and then that one will pull tight through there, that one through there. Have I got the right one? Have I got the right one? Probably not. That's there, we go. That one comes up there. So I'm getting in the way of the camera probably by fingers all over the place, but it's when you got to this sort of fiddly bit, it's not the easiest. Okay, so that's what you do. You're just going around your loops and tightening them up as you go. So you can see where fit's coming useful. And you just keep doing that really. Keep tightening it up and keep across that loop over there. So I can use my fid to neaten that side of it up a little bit there. And you keep going around and around and around and around, keeping it all, tightening it up and making your loops a little bit neater as you go. But that's basically it. That is a monkey's fist. Now, when I tied this, you can see that I've got basically a loop. So there's the end of my loop there. And the monkey's fist is actually tied in the middle of one of these. And so as I've come round, that's the side my monkey's fist. That's where my monkey's fist in is. So we've got that kind of affair with the rope continuing to come up. So this is that's the start of my monkey's fist. It's here, here. That's the finish of my monkey's fist. Then it's come back up and loop back round, and then all I've done is just tucked it underneath those top coils there, and that's just given me a nice slider for my life lanyard. So lots of different things you can do with it. You can tie it cord. There's no centre in my knife one. There's no sort of hidden stone or anything inside it. Yeah, it's a nice decorative thing. Do with it what you want, anything you like. If you tie big rope around a big rock, then you can start your own seaside marine doorstop shop. There you go, monkey's fist. Okay, so Sinnet is just a chain of knots. So, for example, on my penknife, I've got a chain Sinnet there that is just like makes it damn so easy to find in the pocket. I just keep going until something that feels like that, and then there's my knife. And I've also got, there's various things. Crown knots make nice Sinnets and so on. What I'm going to show you is what's often marketed on Amazon, whatnot, and eBay as a survival paracord bracelet. They're really easy to make, and all this survival stuff, the truth of the matter is paracord is really useful stuff, and in a bracelet like this you can actually carry quite a lot of it in a relatively small state. And I've got some decorative things hanging off my hiking rucksack that are crown Sinnets and chain Sinnets and so on, that mean that yes, my rucksack looks like it's dangling off all sorts of tarty bits of decoration and things, but it also means I've got several meters of paracord in case I need it. Right, so what do we need for this? Well, cheap buckle, not very much for 100 or whatever off eBay, not very expensive, and a lot of paracord. What I've got here is I don't know, about 3 meters. Start off by finding the middle. So you got 2 ends and a centre, and what we know about already is a lark's head. So I can just poke that through. Oh, it's a bit of a tight squeeze, but it will go. Bit of a lark's head. So we know about lark's head. We've done that before. Come through. So that just ties that to there. Right. Now, if you want to do a bit of measurement, then by all means do. What I'm going to do is try and keep those 2 lines together. Find our ends again. through there. Oh, it's the problem with paracord. Sometimes you just need to squish it into place. Right, there's one. Now the origin of bracelets like these, paracord obviously comes from parachute cord that was used for, surprise, parachutes. And because paracord is so useful, it was useful back then, it's useful back now, what the parachutists wanted to do was to keep hold of it, and that's exactly what they did. They, on landing, stripped the paracord off their parachutes and tied it into Sinnets. Right, so to measure it, simple, put a wrist in and pull all that up. Now what we don't want to do is to be too tight here, because we are going to tie a load of knots around this, and if we have that right up here, then that bracelet is then no longer going to fit us once we've done all of the knots around the edge of it. So we want to get a good couple of fingers into there, and that will give us the space that we need for our knots. So okay, so once we've done that bit, we can undo that. And what we're going to be basically doing is tying a series of thumb knots. I know, amazing thumb knots, boring old thumb knots. Now they may not look like thumb knots as we're tying them. It might be a bit of a weird way that you think, oh, it's an odd way of tying a thumb knot, but believe me, it is actually a thumb knot that we're tying. So this bit's in the middle from our core, and that's what we're going to be tying the thumb knots around. Alright, so get a bit neat, get things out of the way. So first off, we do a loop like that goes across the top of our core, like that. Right. The second bit, we're going to go from our right hand side over the top of that loop, underneath the core, and then back up through the loop that we made on the other side. Right. Now we'll be doing this lots of times, so don't worry if you didn't catch it. But you can see that's a thumb knot, right? Okay, so pull that tight, and then hopefully it means I can let go of that top knot. Right, so we've done our first knot. Important thing to keep track of when you're doing this is which side you started on. So I started with my loop like that. You need to alternate. So because I started with that one, I now need to do this one over here. So you can tell if the Sinnet starts looking wrong, it doesn't look all pretty and the pattern looks wrong, then you've gone wrong. Just back up until you can find where you were right again, and then you'll be able to see which way you're going. So loop here, over the top there, underneath the middle, and then back up through the loop we had, right? So off that goes, and then tie. Now what you can see is, this is the pattern forming, what you can see is that loop there, you can see a loop there and a loop round there, okay? So the loop there is on the opposite side to the last loop that you did out the side, okay? So if you lose yourself and you forget where you got to, then you know that that loop there means that you were last looped out here, so the next one you need to do is this side. So that's all, quick way of remembering if you get stuck on it. Right, so again, over the top, round the back, up through the loop. Pull tight. Alright. Okay, so around, over, up through the middle. Okay, I'm going to do that a couple more times, and then we're going to do one of those funny cuts, or whatever they call them in the movie business, so that you don't have to sit there watching me tie the same knot all the way down. Alright, so loop over the top of the core, over the top there, behind the core, back up through your loop, pull tight. Over the core, over the top, underneath the core, up through the back. Ta-da! Okay, so see you in a bit. Okay, so there we are. That's finished, all but just a little bit of finishing off. Okay, so you look at the curve of the buckle. That tells us that this is the outside. So I'm going to come down on the inside so you don't get ugly finishing bits on the inside. Lots of different ways you can do it, but this is just the way I prefer to do it. So I'm going to screw fit again. Screw that onto the end of one of our bits of excess. I'm just going to take it down, pick that one a little bit apart. All I'm doing is just opening up the top of the Sinnet a bit, so I've got enough room to be able to pull that down. So I'm just going to do down through a couple of the loops there. Take the twists out. Okay, now I'm going to just take that off there. To the other end. Screw it onto the other end. Then do exactly the same. So I've got those two loops that I've opened up there. In goes my fid. Pull through. Screw that out. Put that on there more. So pull that through. Pull everything tight. Okay, then just going to get a sailor's knife, just take the bottom of it there, taking of course doubly care not to take any finger off with it as well, and because it's paracord it seals up quite easily with a bit of flame. Again, be careful if you're doing any of this, because for a start, paracord catches fire really easily, and for a second you don't want to burn yourself. Just the cord, and then you can see why filming outside was a nice idea, except for when you've actually got to try and get a lighter working. There we go. Alright, and that's why one of the reasons why I've got that bit of leather there is just to squash everything back into place. And there you go. So there's different techniques to doing it. You don't have to use thumb knots. You can use reef knots. That gives you a chunkier bracelet with a different pattern down the side of it. You can use different colours as well. So if you get a bit of paracord, and you can take out the white strands in the middle for a little section, get another bit of paracord, melt the end so it's in a bit of a point, and poke that into the sleeve of it. So that will give you, melt them together so they're joined together. So that will give you two bits of paracord that are joined together to give you a two-coloured bit. And then when you're doing the core of your bracelet, if you end up with that join in the two-stranded core about here, so that you're actually going to be weaving that over the top of it, and then you've got your left and your right will be different colours, and what that actually creates is the lines down the outside are one colour and the crosses in the middle are another colour. Ends up looking really pretty. So lots of things you can do. So there you go, one paracord bracelet with a couple of meters of paracord in there. Useful. To undo it, all you really need to do is to just cut off your ends here where you've sealed it in, and then unravel it. So that's it. So start off with the lark's head, thumb knots all the way around, and then when you get to the end, just tuck it in on itself, and there you go, did easy.